Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on a couple of wooden motor cruisers in and around Victoria, British Columbia. My lovely girlfriend Andrea and the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing them and a few others up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. It can't be denied that living on this coast is something of a privilege. If traveling for the weekend over to the next city over involves a boat ride through these beautiful islands, that's pretty good. We're just coming through Active Pass as we head out into the actual open strait, and this is my favorite spot because it's exactly halfway. So as a result, we meet the ferry coming the other way. This has been a pretty busy week. Started out last weekend coming over to Vancouver with Andrea to start to clean out her apartment, and she stayed there all week while I came back over to the island and up to Genoa to do the work on the swoops on Geordie, which you're about to watch the beginning of, and that's going really well. And so now, late in the week, it's time to go back over to Vancouver and finish up clearing out Andrea's apartment, and we'll be done and she'll be moved out and officially living aboard and be home in Victoria. And then welcome back to the shed, and finally we're going to get started on this extremely exciting, at least for me, project, something that I'm calling the Swoop. For those of you who are just joining the concept of this fantastic undertaking, I'm going to carry this curve of the wheelhouse roof back in an arc down to meet the curve in the aft cabin roof. Now, they're offset by about 5 inches, so it won't actually land on top of it, it'll land further in. And what that'll do, I then can carry on the cabin side mahogany inside that arc. And again, here, there you go. Many of you have seen that picture many times. It echoes basically the shape that Monk intended for these boats. And in fact, just about every other boat of this era, of this style, came originally with that swoop. However, this boat never did, because I have a old photo of it, which, there you go. So right from the start, it never had the swoop, but I love it, so I'm putting it back. Okay, so what do we gotta do? First, I gotta do a little more stripping. There's a big chunk of body filler in here, which is really nice. Take off a little more of all this and then determine exactly where it's gonna go. I have a bunch of plans, but it's probably better that I get a little further along before I really try to describe what that is. You know, when I saw this massive chunk of body filler, I should have suspected there was something gross happening. This is flat. There's no curve here. They created the curve with the filler. It's quite damp underneath, and well, under here we have compost, right? Now, to be fair, from here down is cabin side and will be replaced when I replace the cabin sides, but all right then, well, let's have a look at the port side. You can see there's already been at least 1, 2, 3 generations of work here. They're probably all repairs. At least it feels curved. Gonna have to start with taking the brow off again. And a good frosty morning to you. I can tell you it is cold. It was -3 here this morning. Bit chilly for outdoor work. Anyway, okay, so I didn't mean to show you too much of it. Yesterday was a misery of scraping and sanding, so I've got both sides of the boat opened up of whatever this covering is, enough that we can do this work. And in fact, upon further inspection, this flat spot is actually not so terrible. I considered ripping this out and redoing it, but it's actually in fine shape. I'll just fair it again a little bit, and I'm not going to feel bad about that. Okay, so we're down to the wire. I'm gonna check out what sort of materials I have. I have a plan, which you'll all see soon. All right then. Believe it or not, the first thing I have to do is put the windshield assembly back on so I can figure out exactly where those swoops lie, because I basically defined them with the windshield that I built in advance of really knowing how I was going to. I think you'll understand. Okay. Little brackets down here for temporarily installing the windshield last year, but I think I'm not going to pin them in just yet because I want to make sure I've got my measurements exactly right, so these are exactly where they want to be before I commit to those. Okay, it's tape measure time. But first I'll remove these little temporary infill panels. Okay, aligned. The thing about aligning this windshield has been such a nightmare from the start. There's just rather complex geometries as the windshield bends back and flexes and this and that. And of course, I based it on the windshield that was there before, which might have been a bit crooked. So I made all these parts symmetrical, insisting that I could make it square, but the boat isn't square. I might have told you before that that side is almost 3/4 of an inch higher, so I've had to compensate for that over time. Now, it's as close as I can get it right now. I'll explain a few peculiarities though. Okay, I'll try to do this quick, not dwell on it too long. First, let's say good morning to the swans. Hello, you two. Where's your friend? Anyway, okay, so the idea is, of course, the swoop will come down inside that. It'll come in a ways and then down, and that'll all be white fiberglass. And this will actually only be sealed to the top of that, probably with butyl or possibly with 291, but not fastened so that it can be removed relatively easily, and no punctures through the fiberglass. This little strip of cedar here was really only to temporarily attach those little panels I just had on there. That'll come off. Okay, now one of the main things you'll notice is that the windshield is not parallel, or the side of the windshield is not parallel to the side of the cabin, which is curving in at this point. And that was a conscious decision because I couldn't make the windshield actually curved. That would be pretty ambitious. I could either have just averaged it and pulled it in at the stern and it would have just averaged that curve. But I decided I'll just make the whole windshield assembly a square structure that sits up here. And that has a couple of advantages in terms of the way other things lay out up here. And it also lines up a lot better with future stanchion bases. Now, these are the old stanchion bases, and I won't be reusing those at all, but I'm going to put in a mahogany plinth at this point, which will provide a steady, sturdy base, hopefully for some beautiful bronze stanchions, and then they'll be perfectly in line. If I move that in the almost 3 inches it would require to follow the cabin top,
I think the stanchions would be way too far in for the amount of space I'd like to have up here. So I'm happy with all of that. Now, the trick is to trace out this line, or at least something above it, because of course I can always cut more out of the sides of the windshield assembly, but I did a pretty good job of determining that line when I built these. So with any luck, we're pretty close. Oh wait, the other thing I wanted to mention is I moved the whole windshield assembly forward about 2.5 inches, and that's because of course there will be an upper helm here at some point, and I wanted to make sure there was enough room for it to fit between the bulkhead here and inside the windshield. The steering assembly will be right about here somewhere, and this steering wheel will be here. All right, so I'm going to project down this line. All right, so the next step is to cut out 2 pieces of marine ply that will be the inside faces of these, and then scribe them to the aft cabin top, and well, you'll see. If you haven't been watching for a fair while, you may not be aware that at least this saw has a magic number of 1.5 inches. So when I'm going to rip off 16 inches, I just measure for 17.5, put the fence against my guide, and we're all set. As long as I don't step in the ocean. Okay, now this actually is marine ply, even though the fur veneer would suggest otherwise, but I've been assured, and it does have lots and lots of plies, that it is indeed marine ply. No harm, because it was reasonably economical. Okay, now let's scribe this. Get that square there, that square there. That feels pretty good. And the other side. Have to trim out a little of this bracket so this can come back to here. Very nice. Very nice. So nice, so nice, so nice, so nice, so nice. And now for the outside scribe. Now this is a little bit complicated. You might be able to see a 1/4 inch step right there. And that's because I gave myself an extra 1/4 inch of fudge factor on this piece. Gosh forbid, I wanted to change it slightly. So even though this piece is 1/2 inch, which would make it perfect, technically this piece of plywood will be cut another 1/4 inch higher, roughly. Anyway, let's at least scribe what we have, and then from there we can figure out what to do. And the other side. Beauty. Okay, my only concern now is that I really have matched the transition here well. In other words, coming off the main roof and into the beginning of the curve, and it starts out pretty much exactly parallel, and then after about a foot it starts to curve. Whoop, let me hold this up right there, we go. And then after about a foot it starts to curve down, so there'll be a very, very smooth transition at this at this point, which is what I'm looking for. Let's go check the other side. And again over here, you try that same technique. I can see, well, actually my plywood here is slightly high, but you can see that the curve, I would say, drops a little fast, but I think that's probably because this piece of plywood is slightly high. If I brought it down just that much, it would be pretty close. Pretty close. Oh my gosh, I'm splitting hairs at this point. But you can imagine why I'm doing that at this point, because this is the final chance to control how this curve looks, and I want it to look perfect, right? So okay, I'm pretty happy with it. All right, I've been futzing with this actually for the last 10 minutes. It was a little bit out of alignment, and I've made a correction in the scribe on here that will correct it perfectly. Okay, all right, we can now take this apart. Lift the blade a bit so I can make that sharper turn, and an extra 1/4 inch. Right there. Beauty. Okay, now that I actually put this starboard side piece on the board, I can see that it is low right here. I've drawn a little arrow because that's what I decided to do over while the cabin, while the windshield was still on. But I can see now that that is at least a 1/4 inch low right there. Let's put a little spline on it and see how it looks. Oh yeah, see, so that's pretty much straight through there. So I got to put a bow, about that much bow into that right there. Yep. I'm gonna do that after I trace this side onto it, just to see how the two compare. I can tell from the bottom, totally different curves down here. The deck is a completely different shape, and you will remember that the port side is quite a bit taller. So what do we have? Yeah, the massive difference through here, and by the time we get here, it's very, very similar, just that much taller. So I'm gonna have a go at correcting this by clamping this on here, right where the line starts, and then putting a little flex in it with my hand to join in where it leaves off. Something like that. And I would say that's about a 1/4 at max arc. I'm just going to make up a couple of little ledger blocks to attach these pieces to the bulkhead, basically just so that I can put screws in both directions, one into the bulkhead, one into this new side piece. And I'm going to put these screws in at a bit of an angle just to make it a little easier, because if I put them dead straight, you're very tight against whatever surface this is. So if I put them in at an angle, the first thing I do is I just mark the inside corner, in other words, the side to be coming from as I do this. So we'll just whip a few, a little bit of an angle. And if I flip it over, I gotta remember to switch my angle. Excellent. Okay, so put these blocks on with the thickness of the plywood as a spacer. Now it might seem tempting to put these blocks on with a little construction adhesive or something like that, but the whole thing is going to be fiberglass tabbed in when it's done, so I can't see that there's any reason to do that at all. Now I'm going to tack these side panels down to the cabin top with Craig screws. And well, you've recently seen me use the little mini Craig screw adapter, and it's just a fantastic little thing. Even in plywood, you can make a very, very impressive pocket hole. And I'll be using stainless steel, of course. You can get Craig screws in stainless steel. Now look at this. That is very, very impressive. In fact, I'm not sure that's even all the way down. There we go. Beauty. All right, let's get going on some of this here. All right then. And there we go. Now the Craig screws. Taking a little bow out of this, about there. And so if I measure off stations a foot apart, so my first station is 7 inches wide by a little more than, well, let's say 14.5 inches tall by the time you come out of that. Let's say 15 just to make it safe. Having an abundance of less than stellar mahogany makes this a fairly easy prospect. Now this just gets scribed to there. Easy. And with that trimmed out, that sits against there very, very nicely. Okay, now to cut the top. Well, that's a bit complicated, isn't it? Okay, well, you see, I have to determine this curve, and the radius, I'm going to say, is somewhere in the region of 5 inches. But I can tell you from looking at it in further aft that it's not an equal radius. it may be 5 from here to here, but then it eases off. So what I need to do is make a template. And it's hard to make a template here because this is in the way. So we're gonna make a template back here where it's pretty much nice and smooth and hope it's similar. Okay, so I'm gonna try and make a template that will fit against the cabin at the back, and we'll see how that fits into here. So I'm gonna give myself, I don't know, 2 inches for the top of the template. Let's say 3 actually. And then, as I've said, the curve seems to be about 5 inches high, so we'll start there. And about 7 inches deep. All right, so this curve will sit in here. Now, the thing is, it doesn't actually spring from this line perfectly. It actually comes in at a bit of a notch. So I need to actually make the center point slightly lower than there so it's already working its way in. Plus, it's about a 5-inch radius, but then it still continues to climb uphill about 3/8 of an inch up there. So this is going to be a bit of a fiddle in that I'll set my compass, this lovely compass that I was gifted some time ago, for roughly this 5 inches, because I believe it's roughly a 5-inch radius. There we go. And if I set it right here, it would spring perfectly. So I'm going to actually drop this down, about to there. And now I have to also bring it out a little bit so that this comes in on a bit of an angle. Excellent, so that part is good. The only problem is now I'm way too low. So the radius can't actually be that much. So if I want to start here and I want to end about 3/8 short, I'll put it there. Come back to here, bring this back in, and draw myself an arc about like that. And then to close this up, the radius is much, much, much larger, and it comes and springs up there. I'm gonna say about like that. Excellent. So let's cut this out and see how it fits against the cabin side. Okay then. Okay. Well, I won't say perfect. I think this is actually pretty good. This just needs to be even steeper. Okay, so honestly, that is good enough for me. That is just fine. And so the idea now is that I can transfer this face to this curve, lining up where it's going to hit the piece of plywood I've already put in place. And this work definitely requires eye protection. And there we go. Really pleased with that. Okay, so you'll see though that the slope, the top angle of the swoop is on an angle backwards, so that this will need to be trimmed and faired, but I'm going to do that in place when they're all there. In fact, the last one, it'll be pretty steep. And I'll be able to just put a batten over them as I fair them and make sure they all line up. Holy mackerel, that worked out pretty well. I'm enjoying it. If you're enjoying it, please consider subscribing. And if you're really enjoying it, give it a thumbs up and let that friend of yours know about it, because he might enjoy it too. Okay, well, it's just after 5 o'clock and I shouldn't use any more power tools today. And tomorrow I'm running over to Vancouver to finish helping Andrea move. Whew, big job. And so we'll catch up with you next week and I should get this all wrapped up. Well, hello and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week, coming to you this week from the almost empty ex-apartment of Andrea's in New Westminster, British Columbia, Canada. Can you hear the echo in here? I think we're sitting on the last piece of furniture that hasn't been picked up yet.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Let's get straight to the beer. In keeping in the non-alcoholized theme, we are drinking a Heineken Zero today. And because I never really drank much Heineken, I don't really know whether this tastes good or not. It's not unpleasant, to be honest. We've had a couple. Well, cheers.
Yeah.
No glasses, no glassware, no nothing. Here, you have the first sip.
Okay, thank you. It tastes pretty much like a Heineken.
Does it really?
Yeah, I honestly can't taste much of a difference. It's been a while since I've had a real Heineken, but
Right.
it's pretty good.
Well, it's certainly not offensive. Yeah. We should probably explain. Some weeks ago, I watched a video on people taking a dry month. And I thought, I've never done it. I wonder if I even can do it. And so we sort of challenged each other. In fact, Ladies Efforts is in on the challenge as well. So we're going to be about 5 weeks.
Yes.
Because we're going to go to April 1st. And it's been easy. It really has been easy. When terrace weather comes, it's going to be harder.
Different story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The intention is not to stop drinking, just to sort of see if we could get that euphoric 21-day experience where, well, what are we at? About 15 days, and
I think something can change.
I'm not feeling very different yet.
No, me neither.
Anyway, let's get to some paperwork. Last week's winner of a Travels With Geordie T-shirt is William Aston 9317. Get a hold of us. You've won yourself a Travels With Geordie T-shirt. Congratulations.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
I'd like very much to thank a new Patreon that came aboard last week, and that's Chris L. Thank you very much, Chris. We really appreciate that. How about you, Frida? Do you appreciate that? We're getting on a little better, although she did bite me this morning. Mm-hmm. I'd also like to thank a new PayPal supporter that came aboard, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly. You want to take a risk on that?
Just want to say hi to Steve Gorsline.
Very sorry, Steve,
Sorry.
if we made a mess of that, but cheers and thanks ever so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, so what's it like to have to leave all this space for, I told Andrea she can have 8 blue tubs, and she's managed with 11 and quite a few garbage bags of clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had 900 square feet, going down to how many square feet?
A lot less, especially because we're going to be on Pome for the first little while.
I know.
Exactly.
No, it's good. I mean, it's a good opportunity to get rid of a bunch of stuff. I realized how much kind of junk I have.
We did get a dump run in yesterday. With
We
the
did.
truck.
Yeah. Actually, we've done 2 and
Right.
1 to follow. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's hard though. So there are certain things that you have
Right.
emotional attachment to, but otherwise it's been pretty.
Thank gosh for Facebook Marketplace, right?
Thank God.
It moves on pretty quick. Good stuff. So this is it. We're about another day here of the final cleanup, and then we'll be heading back to Victoria with the last of your possessions for a new lifestyle. And how do you feel about that new lifestyle, it being the word of the week?
I am excited.
Excited.
Yeah.
So what do the folks at home do with the word excited?
Oh, use it in a comment for your chance to win a free t-shirt.
Excellent. See you next week.
Cheers.
I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
Excited. Have a great
Okay.